Oh, there it is. Welcome in, everybody. The moment you've all been waiting for. Friday. And Jason's eyebrows. Wow, they had their own
I glitched out there for a second.
They had their own little ecosystem
I
there
glitched
for a second.
Ecosystem. I can't do it. Can I?
Oh, the
Can't
wave.
do it, I can't do it the same way as it. This one's much more responsive.
That's good because it's
This one-
on the,
this
it's
one's
on
not
the good
so-
side of the camera, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, that's intentional. Welcome in, everybody. Thumb ballot. Sarcastic.
Source says aloha eyebrows.
Aloha. Yes. Welcome in, everybody.
Hello and happy
Hey,
Friday.
hello.
It is Friday.
It
Friday.
is Friday. Rattle Can, Alex, Big Bob, T. Schmidt, Sarcastic, Thumb Palette Enthusiast. Welcome in, Panic Bomb. The moment you've all been waiting for.
Or that none of you have.
Friday.
Oh, I've been waiting for Friday.
You've been waiting for Friday.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either. Why do you need to wait for Friday? Every day is a Friday here. Is it? Maybe?
Well, so it was better before you questioned yourself.
It was. That's true. That was. I was close.
Yeah. Source says, I guess today isn't a bank holiday over yonder.
No bank holiday here.
Nope.
Picked
Nope.
up the AMP sets. Nice.
Nope.
What are we painting today?
It's Easter weekend.
It is. Ooh. We're painting white today. Painting white 101.
Source, no. We don't have, Friday and Monday off. No. For Easter weekend, there's no national holiday observed here. Normally not for those types of things.
Ooh. This is a cool looking model.
The Ghost Keel
What do you think about this model?
battle suit. I like the Ghost Keel.
I think it's a cool looking model. I think it's going to be the best example of what we're going to be doing over the next several days of stream. Painting white.
I think it's very nice.
It's very nice.
Very nice. And we are going to paint it Christopher White.
That's right. Not Christopher White, just white.
Well, I might name this Christopher White, this process that we do, because Christopher has said that he wants to have us paint white.
This is true.
And he cooks meth in a van out in the desert. So Christopher White is probably a good way to put this.
I cook really, really addictive cookies out in that van.
Do you?
Not meth, cookies.
Is that what we're calling them? Cookies?
What are you doing?
I'm throwing some paint in the box.
Jason, what are you doing?
I'm taking these paint bottles and throwing them in this box.
He's organizing. He's getting prepped,
I'm
chef.
getting some of this stuff out of my way.
That's all right. Let him be. Let him cook. Let the chef cook.
Getting some of this stuff out of my way. Out of the way. Bottles.
Yes, Captain Matterings. It is a cool model. There's some really good panels. You guys will be able to see what the
I can put more paint in the spots where they were. So
no, Ghost Hunter. It is not. The camera's not messed up. It is just a
beautiful man.
It is a beautiful man, and that is just a
Sorry about
big.
the model.
Our primer is amazing. I freaking love using that stuff.
Yeah, our rattle can primer is absolutely crazy.
It's
as
hard
you
for me
can
to
see,
focus the camera sometimes
just
on it.
it's just silly.
Yeah,
it's like you can't tell that anything's going on.
I have to squint. I have to squint.
Can't see any details. It looks like that black is black stuff.
Yes, T. Schmidt, white armor tutorial: how to paint white with HBTV craze.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now is determine and talk and determine how we want to do our white.
Yeah, how do you want?
When doing white, I think the most crucial decision is what color you base with. The easy kind of low-hanging fruit is dark grays. You know, we think in terms of black to white, going through a realm of grays, dark to light gray, and then white as a final. That's okay. It's kind of boring, right? But when Chris and I were talking earlier, you know, and I discuss especially colors like white. But really, when you're thinking about what to paint anything, is that you're going to get to a point where you have to kind of plan out what you want the model to look like at the end. So with a battle suit like this, are we going to weather it, right? Like a tank? right? Because this is basically a walking tank. So would we do weathering? Sure. We could do it like grim dark weathering style, really beat it up, that kind of stuff. If we're going to do that, then what kind of weathering are we thinking about? Very earthy tone weathering? Is it going to be in the dirt and the mud, Martian earth, some sort of alien purple, mud? What is our environment that we want to put the model in? Because that becomes a no-fly zone for some of the colors we use on the model, for me at least. It's not always the case. You can choose to base your model with brown and work up to yellow with a brown base and then weather it brown as well, but that tends to have your shadows and your weathering get lost in one another if the colors are too much the same. So I like to think in terms of, okay, well, how would we weather this guy? I think that this guy is probably going to be like I would like to do some like standard rust and just standard weathering, treat it like a scale model tank. And so if we're going to do like standard earthworks, greens and browns and rust colors and stuff like that on it, then I want to stay away from greens and browns and rust colors as colors that I paint the white with. And so that leads me to thinking, okay, earthy tones, a good counterbalance to earthy tones would be what? Anybody got any ideas? Not purple, because I feel like you guys make fun of me because all I use is purple for shadows.
T. Schmidt says blues or jades.
Blues or jades, yeah. Yep, blues. Blues was my first thought when Chris and I were talking. So I think that's where I want to start, is I want to do white with blues. It tends to give you a very crisp white, but I think then by weathering it and knocking that back down will bring some really cool interest onto the model. So that is what we do. And now we got to think about blues. We could, I think, man, let's just do this dark navy blue. Let's use some amp colors. How about that? Dark navy blue.
I was going to say that, or like I was going to say that one, or like dark jade, but I like this one.
Yeah, we'll use some dark navy blue. We have to work up to white from the dark navy blue, so some other chances we could use like a jade-ish color on there too. I don't know that I really want to bring green in. I might want to leave green as part of the weathering. We'll play around with it and see. We'll play, chat. Remember, we're here to have fun.
That's right.
Here to have fun.
No, this is definitely for all of you who are hopping in. We've had a lot of questions regarding white over the many months, I would say. So it is a topic of... It's just a hot topic. So
I used to buy my clothes there.
There you go. Hot topic.
Hot topic.
That's the Hot Pockets.
Oh, that's Hot Pockets, but it could have been whatever. Whatever, dude.
Dark navy blue. Ooh. Oh, man. That is such a good color, dude.
It's almost like we know what we're doing, Chris.
So you're just going to base the whole thing?
Yeah, I'm just going to base the whole thing. And base coats, I tend to not really think in terms of what's going to be what color at the end. Like, I know his head's probably going to be something more like a yellow or an orange. Towel colors tend to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and build it up from the blue, too. This helps to make sure I'm not limiting myself in what my opportunities with color are. Now, I am doing this in a way that's allowing some of the black shadow to still remain, because there's a lot of lining on this guy, right? And I don't want to have to go back and panel line later. So do the blue very light to start, so that a lot of the panel lining, so I'm using that kind of, I won't call it zenithal, but I'm using more of a top-down spray. I'm not trying to spray from up underneath if I can avoid it. That'll leave some of the black shadow on the model. And help for later on when we get to white. Because remember, the big kicker with white is you're going to want to have quite a bit of contrast on this model. And in order to make sure that we don't have to spray white on it. You know, I always go back to talking about like stormtroopers. We joke and we say, it's not really a joke, but it sounds like we're joking when we say, hey, what's the best way to paint white? Don't use white. And it's very truthful. But in order to not have to use white, you have to have a lot of darkness and contrast on the model. Okay, so I need a little bit more of that color. Notice I'm not thinning for my base coat. I'm just straighten them out of the bottle into the cup. I just want to make sure I don't have any areas that are pure black.
I
when I'm
like
done
this
here.
this shadow color. I might start using this one for a.
It works really well.
Yeah.
It's just like a brighter Payne's Gray. Think of it like that.
I use Payne's Gray for everything.
That's really what this is just a brighter Payne's Gray.
Yeah.
Payne's Gray, and what's really happening here is by leaving the black, I'm getting that kind of start with Payne's Gray, then move a little bit brighter, all in one step.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not covering the black entirely, just kind of feathering over the top so that it gives me that feel of a darker version of the navy.
Yeah.
And the underneath bits. Okay, that's good. Bang. That was easy. There, we're done. Thanks, chat.
How to paint white.
Thanks, chat. That's how to paint white with Jason. You can figure the rest out. Now just finish the owl. Finish the damn owl, chat.
Everybody, hold on.
See, you don't even need to drain it because it kind of drains itself. The sarlacc eats its own.
Yeah, because there's brain-eating amoebas in there. That
What do you think if I
there's
touch
a whole
it?
ecosystem.
Can I touch it?
Ah!
I do know how to make Hollywood practical effects, by the way.
I'm gonna. There we go. We'll just go to your face on this one. No, it's okay. Look at it, chat. Gross. Hey, welcome in, everybody. It is Friday.
It is Friday. Where
How
are we
about a
going? Where are we
camo
going with that?
field on one of the parts? Potentially. I heard Tower, one of the most disliked factions, right next to Chris's opinions. Guess who that was? Thanks,
Is that a Little Billy comment?
Buried.
Little Billy, glad to have you. Thank you.
Now, would this same workup we're doing apply on smaller models?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, anything I do is not due to scale. You know, the one thing that we talk about with regards to if you're painting something large like this battle suit versus like a standard fire warrior is that if I were to use like 4 colors as a base, with a smaller model, you might need to reduce it to 2, right? Because you just don't have as much area to get that much color to be relevant. So the larger, and usually larger models are more characterful. They're larger centerpieces for your army. So adding more color to them in the workup stages makes sense. Mm-hmm. They'll have a little bit more depth. They'll be a little bit more interesting than just your pack of dudes. That's fine.
I might make the switch from Payne's Gray to Dark Navy Blue as just my universal. I really like the brightness of this one.
Well, there's times where Payne's Gray is going to be better. Like if you were doing my red Blood Angels, I would not use this because I don't want that much.
Color.
In order to have that contrast remain, I got to start darker.
Okay.
Because my top coat color of red is not as bright as white. So remember.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. When you're going to a bright main color, then your shadow almost doesn't want to be as dark because you're going to gain contrast easier due to the brightness of your main color like white.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That makes total
That's
sense.
why when you see a lot of people paint white, if they use black as the underlayment, it's almost too much.
Oh, it's too much of a... Okay.
Too stark of a contrast.
Okay.
And it doesn't give you a natural feeling shadow, right? So it doesn't look blended. It looks like it makes too big of a jump. It's just kind of garish.
Too much.
Yeah, just too much.
Oh, Brutal Burrito. 12 months. Liar.
All right.
Great.
So now we have some other color determinations. We spoke about jade. Jade would be kind of fun.
Okay.
We have like the bright green blue. Might be kind of a neat color to work up into white,
now,
right? Let's sticking with the amp color. So if I mix these two and get kind of a sea foam in between, or let's see, do we have anything in the range that might get me there? One of the turquoises, perhaps?
Oh. I just did a
How about
couple demons with dark turquoise. Oh, that'd be cool.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. I think this is too much.
Gray blue says Tiny Victories.
I think this is too much. Yeah, it's too. That's too much. I mean, we have like faded ultramarine could be really good. Gray blue kind of takes the place of the bright blue green. Yeah. So, you know, it's one or the other on those two. So it depends on if we wanted to push it a little green or if we want to keep it in the range of blue. I think the faded ultramarine works really well here. I think that the slate gray could work pretty well over that. It doesn't give a lot of brightness, but that could be a really good top coat on that. I kind of like that. If we go slate gray, then on top of that, and then we could do cool gray. That's looking kind of good. And then into our whites. That could be kind of cool. It keeps it very muted.
Yeah.
As opposed to going more, in a colorful direction. Let's do that.
So
That way we're also just keeping it amp.
Yeah, so what's the workup?
It's going to be obviously the dark navy that we just did, and then we're going to go to slate gray and then a cool gray.
Nice.
We'll see how that plays out, Chet. Bold move, Cotton.
That's a cool gray.
It's a bold move, Cotton.
A very cool.
Yeah, and he's going to say this the whole day, so that's really what I wanted.
A cool gray.
So again, straight from Le Batel. That's French, by the way.
Le Batel?
Le Batel.
Le Batel?
I probably just said something really nasty, but
we'll Google it later.
We'll roll with it. We'll roll with it. All right, so now we want to start thinking in terms of how we would spray in a more zenithal manner. Oh, this is going to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are going to love this. Can we zoom in?
Yeah.
Stage 2. Now we're going to want to get into this area where we're just a little bit more focused on how we're applying the paint, what the angle is. I'm not really determining my light direction yet. I'm not at that stage. What is that? It has like a moving part in there.
There's a moving part?
I blame Philip.
Oh, yeah, dude.
This part in his neck.
This is going to be a great...
This is awesome.
Yeah. I'm already liking this. We haven't even gotten to the good part. So you're treating this more as that zenithal?
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't picked a direction of lighting. This is still just a base coat. But I am top down. So consider it like, noon o'clock. Yeah, that's great. That's a good combo. Dare I say wombo combo? The reason I'm not picking a lighting direction yet is because I want these two colors and the way they interact to basically be my shadow. This is going to be the way the model is set up so that the blue only really shows through very, very limitedly. And most of our shadows will be the combo of these two. And I can just kind of, I don't have to be perfect with it. I just want to make sure that I get coverage on most of the spots. There could be a couple of spots that are primarily just blue, right? Like maybe the underneath of the gun here, right? But even there, I probably want to just hold the brush back 6 or 8 inches and kind of feather lightly in there. Don't die, Chris. Yeah, that's a good color.
Very nice. Could you do this with a dry brush, or is it a preference on the airbrush, says Ghost Hunter?
You could definitely do it with a dry brush if you did like we showed the other day where you're using the smudge brush technique. You're putting a lot more paint on with like a DD2 or a DD3.
Ooh,
right?
Look at that. That looks great.
Still fairly dark. The fact that even though we didn't thin this color, I'm just misting it. I'm about, 4 inches away from the model. I'm not overloading the model with this color. So while it's working, it's not overtaking the blue tremendously. So you still get a lot of that blue showing through, right? Because this is not intended to be a bright color. We're not, overloading highlights or anything like that on the model yet. This is just creating a blended color, so to speak, right? Yeah. The dark navy.
Uh-oh. Camera's all
and this,
up again.
He's pressing the wrong buttons again, chat.
I did.
Pressing the wrong buttons.
What the heck is going on?
I pay you for the correct button pressing.
Really freaking out on me right now. What's going on? Oh, maybe it's because this. Hold on, chat. Hang on.
Hold on to your lunch.
Oh. One second. This is odd. Oh, that's why it's unplugged. Okay. Okay.
I'm really liking this.
It's a really cool workup. Oh, yeah. There we go.
I think it'll give us a cool enough shadow without having to go too far into some really crazy color, which will allow us to use more color in our weathering. It'll allow me to get a little bit more interesting with the weathering. I can put like some greens and moss and rust and things like that on them if I choose to. Whereas like purple and magentas and things that I might want to do for white on something like this would be really cool if I didn't plan to do any weathering.
Yeah.
Right? All right, I don't have to clean the brush entirely between paints because so many of these colors are very similar. For the cool gray, again, we're not going to thin. We're just going to spray all these colors direct from the airbrush.
Yep.
The only thinning is that there might be a little bit of water left in here from rinsing the previous color out. And notice how anytime I'm putting paint in here, I'm only ever filling to about the bottom of the cup.
Yep.
Just a good habit to get into. Don't put a ton of paint in the brush at any time.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, now I need to pick a lighting direction. And so this is where we got to kind of take a look at the model and say, okay, well, what would a good lighting direction be? And that's based on, I choose based on the pose of the model generally. So for this guy, the way he is on the base, I kind of like the idea of the light coming from this way.
Yeah.
Right? Over his left shoulder. What is going on?
Yeah, I actually don't know. Give me 1 second. Sorry, give me 1 second, chat. There we go. Huh.
Is it like on autofocus or something?
Looks better. Sorry,
Yeah,
give me
good.
1 moment.
That's good.
Oh, it's
Except
still... There it is. There we go. Okay, we're good now.
Don't touch it.
It is resetting on its own for some reason. I have no idea. All right.
So I'm going to spray from what we would call the 2 o'clock position to get our lighting down.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. That looks great. There's a little from the top. Nice. Look at that. That looks great.
And I just want to get in and kind of cheat some color into areas that might not normally have as much, but just so we can get some coloring going on. Always thinking about, okay, if my light is hitting from up above the left shoulder, then always think about where that light would get blocked, where it would be brighter, where it would hit the model directly, where it wouldn't hit at all. Right. Also realizing this is still not our brightest color. And as you can tell, I'm not worried about like painting the guns this color. I'm not as focused on what material is what. You could take more time here and make sure that you were only applying the color to things that were supposed to be white.
That's okay, though. I mean, you definitely getting the idea for sure. Ooh, yeah.
You know, we have this really neat, cool, very cool gray.
It's a cool gray.
It's a pretty cool gray.
It's a cool gray.
So I want to make sure, since this isn't our brightest color, that I push it a little further. I don't want to leave myself with no place to put our white. Okay, so you notice that from our light side, we're getting pretty bright. You can see how we're going to get to white. But then from our dark side, right? We're still left with a lot of this dark gray bluish color. So we have to determine now, okay, what do we want to do over here? Because this is only going to get brighter as we put white over it, transparent white, whatever we decide to do here, okay? So white blue might be the choice, actually, since we're working with blues. So this is only going to get brighter. So in order to avoid this getting so bright, if we don't do anything in the shadows right now, then as we brighten this, this becomes darker visually, and it looks like we haven't painted anything. So from the 10 o'clock, right, so you've got over here, 2 o'clock, that's where we're applying our highlight from. Now we want to switch to 10 o'clock and pull back further, right, and just do a light dusting of the model from this side. So it doesn't get as bright on any of the areas, but this color does fall in there, and make sure that it kind of gives me just almost like we did a light dry brush. Okay, this is still a lot brighter, but now over here stops being as dark. And a lot of that is done just by, like I said, pulling the brush back 6-8 inches instead of the normal 3 or 4 that we paint from with the airbrush. And boom, you're able to dial in the shadow side. Brighter where we focused and got closer, darker where we pulled back, but still gives you some detail and still allows our light source to have an effect. Then I'll come back over here and re-brighten up anything I feel like needs a little bit more intensity. And that's looking pretty good.
Oh, I think it's looking great, Jason.
Why, thank you. All right, bingo. That's a great color combo, too.
It is.
That would be a heck of a putty gray for an army. Like if you were doing Space Marines or something, that right there would just be a great place to stop. And then you could take the same cool gray and do your edge highlighting. And that would give you a really good muted, like city camo gray with that bluish undertone to it. So that would be a really neat color combo just for doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Would not be mad at that at all.
Not at all.
All right, clean the brush.
No, that's great.
All that with no thinning. You want to pop in real close and we'll show them the power of Pro Acryl over anything else you'll find. Right. Is the fact. Can you go in closer than that?
Yeah. I got one more punch. Ooh.
You can look at how fine that is with zero thinning. Super, super
you're
smooth.
At what, 27 psi? Is that what you're
22-ish. Yeah, 22 psi
okay.
is usually where we're at here in Arizona. But no thinning. Really, really nice and smooth. A little bit of a hair there. I blame Philip.
Nice. That looks great.
Right. So you won't get any spotting once you get used to using it. I didn't do anything special here. Just, keep your distance.
Phil says I can see all my flaws while I was building it. Philip said this model was a little kind of annoying to build.
Man, you did a great job. It looks great to me.
I
got no problems with it. I didn't have to build it, so it's fantastic.
So who cares?
But if anybody comes on the stream and says, "Good God, you couldn't even do your mold lines," I'd be like, "It's Philip. I will throw you under the bus, Phil." But I'll still be happy about it. Not about the throwing you under the bus part. I'll feel real shame for throwing you under the bus.
Real shame?
Real shame, not fake shame.
Real shame.
Not the fake shame I feel when I make fun of Chris.
That's fake shame?
Well, it's a shame I have to show to the public so they think I'm a human and not just a beast.
I can almost see Smag on the screen if I squint hard enough. You can't. You can't, Big Bob.
He's over there. I have to walk past that shameful display every day.
Oh, boy.
It reminds me that the values that we hold so dear here at Monument Hobbies.
The values. Hey, I'm going to paint it. I'm on a demon kick. I've been looking for all these little demon models for Frostgrave.
Are dragons demons?
No, not in the world.
Demons are things from like the netherworld.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Tolkien, right? They're evil, but they're not demons. The nameless things are the demons.
They had a Forge World model that was super cool for a beastie that probably is no longer in the game because it's Forge World. But it was a demon. It was like the Watcher in the Dark or something like that.
Oh, yes. The for Middle Earth strategy game.
Yeah.
Yes, it was just a straight up demon.
Yeah, just a demon. And the model was bitching. And everybody used to want to get it for 40K because it was a better demon than like your greater demon model.
It's actually pretty cool.
And they never had it. Never had it. And I'm sure they've discontinued it now.
That was the like the nameless things.
Nameless, yeah. Maybe that was what it was, the nameless one or something like that. I don't know what it was, but I always remember it being a cool model, and then it was always out of stock. I was like, oh, I got to get one of those to paint, and nope.
Yeah.
That was not a chance. That was not going to happen. All right. So now we got to make a decision because we got to get what is white on our model, and look at how bright white blue is.
That's really bright.
Right? So I'm thinking white blue.
Just like kind of more of a, yeah.
And then we do our final spot with transparent white over the top
like
of white blue.
Now is it, yeah, I guess we'll get to there, but would you glaze the transparent white? Like you're going to thin it down, or is that just?
Yeah, we'd thin it down.
Yeah, okay.
And even for this white blue, we will mix it. This will be the first one that we thin.
Okay.
I'm really loving the shadow.
This is an awesome work
on the leg. Working good. So here we need a cup. We are going to thin. Whenever I'm getting to the filtered colors, right? So when you get to your brightest colors, you got to be careful. Do you have to thin them? No. I could spray this directly on the model. But when you get to your brightest colors, you're now starting to create a tremendous amount of contrast. So thinning is usually wiser. So if you're not comfortable with airbrushing thin, this is where you need practice. Because if you just try to spray white over the top of your model, a lot of times you're going to get kind of more blotchy contrast. You'll see your highlights start to be pulled into spots and look spotty on the model, and you still want it to blend. You want it to be a natural blend in small areas. And so thinning the paint allows you to do that spot highlight that naturally blends, as opposed to not thinning the paint when it gets brighter because of the contrast. Just the visual. It's not that it's acting any different as a bright color versus the dark colors. It's that the eye is reading the difference between the bright color and the colors underneath it more because of that contrast it's generating. And it looks like it pulls into a spot. And it looks like you're painting circles instead of blended. All right, so white, blue, un, deux, trois, four. Because I don't know what French four is. You know what four in French is? It's vier in German. Un, deux, trois, vier. That would piss some people off. That's my new counting method.
I have no idea.
Quatre. Un, deux, trois, quatre. And what's five? No, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. My whole shtick is I can only count to 3.
You just opened up a can of worms.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm old. I don't want to learn anything. All right, here we go. What did we say yesterday when we were doing like stuff? We were doing like 6 to 1. So there, 6 to 1. My eye and brain are so quick that made sense to me. And then a little
spritz of water.
Just a little spritz.
There you go, Ghost Hunter. There's your spritz.
A little spritz of water to get the viscosity down. We want both lowering of opacity and viscosity when shooting it through the airbrush. And I'll be damned if that doesn't look white with just a hint of blue in it.
One would say it looks like a white blue.
Like a white blue, which is the one color that pisses people off because blue-white, it should be its name. But I didn't like the way blue-white sounded, so I took some artistic license because white-blue sounded better.
Okay.
Blue-white didn't sound good to me. Even though we have warm white.
That's a great color.
It could have been cool white, and that's what I should have done.
That's a cool white.
It should have been cool white, but I was not in that brain space at the time. There we go. That looks good to me. That looks good to me. That's what we're going with. And then we just do this. We go un, deux, quatre, white.
And that looks pretty dang white already. Yeah. Like, that's going to come out great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is we say when painting white, don't use white. How do you get away with not using white? You get a color that gets you so close, right? Like white blue, ivory is a fake white, pale yellow is a fake white. All of these bright colors are what I call fake whites, tongue-in-cheek wise, is because they get you to the feel of brightness on the model without ever using white, which allows white to retain the king space of the brightest color for those really bright highlights, the final touch you want to put on the model. If you paint white to get your white armor, you can't go brighter. And so now you can't do highlights. And now you lose depth and you lose contrast and volume and all of those things. So leave white as the last thing you use. All right, punch me in. Get me in closer, Chris. All right, so here we go. 10 o'clock off the shoulder again. Now I'm going to have to think about individual parts of the model separately. So top of the shoulder here.
Oh, that's bitchin'.
Head is not going to be white, so I am going to avoid the head right now. I don't know how much of the gun casings are going to be white, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit them. Okay. And leaving that shadow, right? Here's where I'm really paying attention to where my light is able to get into nooks and crannies. Now, I will look at it and say that I probably want a little bit more brightness on this thigh and a little bit more brightness on the top of this one. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and get in here a little closer. Right? And just work up a hair more brightness on that thigh. So it gives me more drama. Right? Drama. Same thing on the cod piece here. And then on the thigh over here, I'm just going to rotate them all around so I can get the top of that thigh. A bit like that. Gives me just a little bit more punch. Get the nodules here. Like that. I don't know what the color of the chest emblem is, but we'll go ahead and bump it up a bit too. There, right? I'm just catching these round bits that would pop out away from the surface of the leg. So I can bring some brightness onto those. Gives it a little bit more dimension. Looking down here on the foot, this foot would be shadowed at the top because of the way our light would cover the top of the foot. If we look at where I'm the sun looking at the model, see how I can't see the top of that foot? So the highlight would be down towards the toe. So that's why you see me doing this one like this, right? Brightening up the toe, fading that in a little bit. Right? Maybe this ankle thing back there. Nodule, I like that word. Maybe a little bit of edge highlight right there on the other toe to brighten it a little bit. Okay. But over here with this foot, when we look at it where the sun, then I see the top of this foot. So I'm brightening up the top of this one. Now I'm working anywhere from 1 inch to 2 to 3 inches away when I'm doing this top of the whatever this is. It's technically the ankle, I think, because he has like animalistic legs here. Okay. And the thigh plate on the outside here. And just, again, get those little bumps that stick out. And we already started getting the tops of all of this stuff. I'll get enough again over here just to feather a little color into the shadow side. Not too much. So, again, evaluate. Here we've got, can you back out one?
Yep.
Right? White armor. Not using any white, but it sure looks white, right? And now you're looking at, I've got good shadows on the thigh where the arms would be casting shadows just because the paint wouldn't go there because I'm aiming like this. So the model blocks the paint from hitting the other parts and I get those natural shadows, okay? On the thigh, waist area, all that kind of stuff. And he's kind of bent over so there wouldn't be as much brightness down the side of this gorget piece that he's got going on here, but maybe a little bit more than we got.
I can kind of see the environmental white, right, where it's not, you know, the light source isn't super, super bright.
Yeah.
Right?
And remember, we still got to go brighter color.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go with the transparent white, that'll brighten up the uppermost parts too. So we got to be careful to not overdo it, but make sure that we get enough coloring along the way that holds up and gives us the contrast when we're done with the spray altogether. I think I get more right along this collar. The face is throwing me off a little bit, only because I'm not doing the helmet right now. And now that I've done one pass, I'll go back in, knock a little bit more opacity onto it with pass 2.
Because you said the head's going to be a different color.
Yeah, I'm going to do the head a totally different color. Probably yellow. Another really fun color to paint. Okay. A little bit more of this shoulder plate over here just to brighten it up. This may not be 100% correct, but I don't like the shoulder plate being so dark over on that side. Do something like that. Okay. Looking good. And then again, evaluate. How dark is this versus this, knowing you're going to make this side a little bit brighter still, right? A lot of times you'll see people do that kind of one side's, you know, a neat fire kind of, you know, colored lighting and then moon colored lighting on the other side, but they're so in contrast with one another that not both of them could exist in the same spot. So again, here, we're going to go from 10 o'clock and just do a light dusting. Hold the brush back 6 to 8 inches, something like that, and just kind of pull little pulses of the brush. And it'll have kind of a dry brush effect in that it will just blend the two sides together faintly without giving me really bright white feel anywhere. This is one of the hardest things to do. It's one of the simplest and one of the absolute hardest to get. Simplest to make happen once you understand it. Hardest to get used to doing, right? Because you'll mess up. You'll put too much color on this side, but see how it looks almost like a dry brush. I've just picked up top edges. That makes that a little less harsh. And I can come in here and fake, give myself a little bit more glow, like on the hip and on the back of this backpack piece here. You know, because the light coming from this side would go all the way across, maybe. Give myself a little bit more color down these pieces.
Prisoner, Angel, thank you so much for those subs. Appreciate it.
All right. That I'm starting to feel really good about. Yeah, I like that. I like it because if we look from our lighting source here,
yeah,
the highlight should feel fairly natural.
You can
Might want to get a little bit more brightness down towards the toe, just kind of run that whole length of the foot here, right? But other than that, I've got brightness everywhere I think I should have brightness, right? The only thing is, what is that right there? Maybe a little bit more brightness down the side of the chest there. That looks pretty uniform, right? Then as I rotate it around away from the light, I start picking up only the details. Maybe that thigh plate is still a little dark. I'll brighten that up a bit. And everything else is looking really good. Then we get over here and we know we're on our shadow side. That's pretty good. Right? Again, if you feel like you want to brighten it up more, again, just hold the airbrush back 6 to 8 inches. Lightly dust it. Quicker pulls of the trigger. Never keeping it in the same spot. You're not aiming anywhere. You're just kind of giving an overall. And that picks up a lot of detail there. Okay.
So when doing armor in prime colors, what is the OSL principle as TK421? Do you try to add something to make it look like armor? This is the question, right?
What does prime colors mean?
Yeah. I'm going to have to explain that, TK.
You mean when you're priming the model?
When doing armor in prime colors.
Are you talking about when you're going through and priming the model?
Blue, red, yellow, says TK421.
When doing armor in primary colors. What's the OSL principle? Do you try to add something to make it look like armor?
Might have to explain that.
Yeah, I need a better explanation. That's not making a lot of sense to me from a standpoint of when you're doing primary colors. So you're painting CMYK, that's my understanding, and you want to do OSL. Let me just talk from OSL standpoint. If I'm doing OSL on a model, I paint the model as if there's no lighting first, and then I go add the lighting to it second, right? I will make sure that the shadow is intense where it needs to be, but I will not add the OSL color onto the model until later, right? Because the lighting will only affect the colors the model would be anyway. So what if you do what a lot of people do and they just kind of leave no color on it and then they just put a lighting color? It looks very weird and one-dimensional. Like if you shine a yellow light on me right now, it's going to be yellow against my skin color, yellow against my hair, yellow against my tattoos, yellow against my tan khaki shirt, right? And not all of those are going to be the same color of yellow. So just paint the model the way you would without the light, other than the value and intensity of color where it should be and shadow where it should be, much like we're doing here, and then layer the color of the light over the top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How do you, if you were to spray a wrong part during the process, how do you fix that?
I just paint it over with black generally and then start it afresh.
DK is going back to that question, is asking the differentiating between cloth and armor.
How do you differentiate between cloth and
with OSL?
When you're applying OSL, again, if you paint the cloth and the armor with their associated textures and highlights and everything, and then add the OSL on top of it, it solves the problem for you, right? That's one of the principal reasons why you want to do that. Does that make sense? You would paint the cloth and make it a texture or colors that it would be, and then let's say you have a torch, then you would have the torch up and add that yellow-orange flame color over the top. And because you had textured the cloth different than the armor, it would look like the OSL was on a different material anyway. That's why that's so important. Now, there are some people that do that all at the same time, right? So they will paint the OSL color, mix it in with their colors, right? So if I know that his face is going to be, torch lit, I might mix my skin color with more yellow in it, or more orangey yellows in it, so that the skin tone I'm painting on the model already takes into account the color of the light. You can do that too. It's just a different way of thinking about it. I prefer to paint everything as if there's no light, the same way I paint every model as if there's no weathering, and then I weather that. Because my mentality goes to the fact that should you take the torch away, what are you left with? You're left with a model the way it should be. If you take the weathering away, what are you left with? You're left with the way the model would look coming off the factory floor. Paint it that way and then add the weathering to it. It allows you to adjust better, make sure that all of your materials are taken care of so that cloth looks like cloth, armor looks like armor, all those things you're talking about. Don't want your armor to look like cloth. Oh yeah, 100%. A lot of that comes into texture and how you highlight. Remember that hard surfaces like armor, what I would assume armor is going to be, it's not soft. Cloth is soft. Softer materials tend to reflect less light, so they don't have as bright of a contrast along the edges. So when doing armor, you'll find that you go brighter with your highlight than you do when you're doing cloth normally. There are some cloths, like, I always bring up mithril, and all of these, elven silks. If you're doing fantasy miniatures, you might have a reason to have your cloth be very shiny. It could be satin. You could come up with a reason to have your cloth be shiny like metal. But at that point in time, it's going to look like metal, right? So, but normally cloth, like you can see here, my face gives off more shine than my shirt, right? Even in the light, like over here, where the shoulder is lit more, but this side of my face away from that same light is brighter, right? Just because of the oils in your skin, the shininess of your skin, the reflectiveness there. The rim of my glasses is reflecting more than anything else because the harder the surface gets or the more wet or oily it gets, you'll have more reflectiveness. The natural oils in your hair cause it to shine more, so you get that reflectiveness to your hair that doesn't happen on the skin, that doesn't happen on the shirt. So that gets into how do you use light via color and contrast to exhibit material, right? And it can happen, number one, how much do you highlight it? And number two, how much texture does it have? And that's a technique of brushing, right? If the sculpt doesn't have hair sculpted on, then little, swipes of your brush to create the illusion of hair follicles is a great way to create texture, or stippling for cloth and things like that. Because like the horse we just did, one of the things, even though it's tiny, if you zoom way in, we talked about stippling, right? And stippling for the leather surface rather than just blending like I normally would. That dot stipple on the leather makes it feel different than the armor, right? And different from the skin, because I didn't stipple on the skin. I did edge highlighting and blending. But the leather, I did stippling, so it makes it look like if you touched it, it would feel different. I didn't use stippling anywhere else, right? A little bit on the metallics to blend them, but they look different than the leather. And everywhere else, I did just straight blends and edge highlight. Notice how the cloak, I didn't edge highlight very bright because it's cloth, as opposed to the armor and the skin that's more reflective. So again, it keeps your material focus better so that you can get away with, having one thing feel like if you walked up. I always talk in terms, if I walked up and touched the model, what would it feel like? You want metal to feel hard and cold, generally. You want cloth to feel soft and warmer. Doesn't mean that it can't be cool colors, but it has that feel to it. So, hope that helps.
Oh, it helped.
Oh, it helps, Chris.
I thought it helped. Hopefully that did help you, TK421. And hey, we are at the bottom of the hour.
Shoinks.
Can you believe that? We've gotten a lot done so far.
Okay, yes. We have gotten a lot done so far.
That's right.
Transparent white. I'm not going to thin this.
Oh, you're just going to
I got a cup out, but I don't want a cup out. Transparent white is very, very translucent right out of the bottle. Out of all the transparents, it's the one you don't have to thin.
Got it.
Right? In general. Now, you may want to thin it because it's thicker than you want for whatever you're doing. Sometimes I'll thin it a little bit in the airbrush because it is a little bit higher viscosity because of the zinc content in it. But most of the time, I don't worry about it. We just put it in the airbrush. Zoinks. And just to show you, like, the white, get it, the water out. The white, if I just hammer down on the mouth of my snake, right, I'll get white. But in general, like, look at me as I filter over the teeth and the rest of the area around there.
Just a light dusting.
Yeah, it just can kind of give it just a halo of color.
All right.
So right out of the bottle, again, just another color of ours that you don't have to thin. But it works great on the brush or the airbrush. So transparent white, folks. And now we go back and we do the same thing we just did, focusing on those same areas, just tightening up a bit, a little bit, just aiming up at the top edge of the shoulder plate here. Okay. And see how it just gets me a little bit brighter across the top edge of that, and then that white blue flows down into our other grays. Transparent white is so good.
It is. It's a really cool tool.
As a filter like this, it
specifically for this.
Right?
Oh
yeah, it's just great because it helps blend anything back. If I did have some rough blends or areas where maybe I crossed my bright color into my dark color a little too much, this will help filter that out. Just too good.
Yeah. I'm always curious. That's why I was just standing. I'm always curious to see how the camera versus the real thing processes it. And it's pretty dang close.
It seems like these cameras do great with whites, whereas most cameras don't. Where they fail is with yellows and oranges.
100%. That is a common thing on how companies code their yellows, their oranges, their reds. But whites like this, I mean, this is looking great.
And I extended down a little into the shadows over here just because it helps blend all that out. Okay.
There's the 100-foot loop.
This is where I just want to always kind of evaluate my areas and make sure that I'm getting the right amount of brightness everywhere, because this transparent white will be a lot more intense as I place it on the model, and then as it cures, it will lose a lot of its brightness. Not a lot, but it will lose enough of its brightness that you may want to go back and look. Don't say, oh yeah, that looks great, and then put it away and then be like, oh wait. Right? But now we have that white armor with all that really cool blue. That dark navy is still there.
Yep.
Right? That slate gray is still there, giving us a really cool transition into our white that feels nice, clean, and crisp. As opposed to if we'd use browns or greens or any other color, we could have added in a little bit of dirtiness. You know, my Nurgle that we always show are done with jades as a big component of the white. Call it bruised white. Jades and purples. Gives a totally different feel than this does.
Nice.
I don't know what I'm going to color the gun, so I'm just kind of playing around here. I just know I don't want this side as white. All right, back assault one. Let's take a look.
Oh, look at that. Nice. That's a solid workup. Kind of recap it for us here a little bit for those just coming in.
Well, that dark navy blue gives us a great foundational underpinning for shadow, right? It gives us just enough of a bluishness over the black primer to feel like a brighter Payne's gray. And when using white, like we talked about, the idea here is we look at that cool shadow, cool temperature-wise and cool awesome-wise, too, of the arm, right? Shading the leg, right? And having that blue in there, like on the underside, the inner leg here, does all of the heavy lifting that we worry about later. Sometimes we think, oh, we'll put a wash on it, right? Well, yeah, a wash can work, but a wash won't give you that color depth because you apply the wash over the top of things, and that's kind of not how color works, right? Shadow just means light can't reach an area. It's not that the shadow is a physical thing that goes on the model, right? The shadow is a lack of light being able to illuminate parts. And so we're recreating that better as we build up into bright colors. So the shadow of the dark navy blue gives us a really nice, cool shadow color in that recess area. Then we move on to slate gray. Slate gray is a bluish gray, so it's a fantastic color for this. And that it, as you can see, right, it has just enough of blue. When I put it next to a blue, you can see, right, on its own, it looks fairly neutral. But if I put it next to like neutral gray, then it doesn't feel neutral anymore. Or when you put it next to white, it immediately becomes bluish, right? And so using that with the dark navy, I think was a great choice. It's not something that we've done before, but it's something that really felt good on the model. That combo there, and then moving into cool gray for the next highlight, right? I've already misplaced half of these colors in front, really right in front of me, right? The cool gray as a highlight for that, those three colors, right? The dark navy into slate gray into cool gray, fantastic workup. I would do an army just with this as the gray color, say Space Wolves, 30K Space Wolves. This would be incredible, right? I mean, like incredible coloring for it because it was really, really good. It had good depth, even though I haven't gone from a super dark to a super bright color. It still had good depth because of the hue differentiation there. So I love that. And then we went in with white blue over the top of that. Just that was the first and only color that we thinned. We thinned down the white blue in a cup just with water and glazed wash medium so that it had lower opacity. And we filtered that over everything to bring the other colors together. And then the transparent white over the top of that to give us a punch of white. And that's where we're at right now. And that's where I'll let the white settle in. And then we'll look at going back and maybe hitting it again. Although I really like this. I don't know that we have to have a whole lot more going on.
When you mean hit it again, what do you mean?
Well, if I wanted to brighten it up anymore, but I'm kind of really liking this. I don't know that we need a lot more effort here.
Well, it's definitely translating as white.
Oh, 100%.
Right. So it's not...
Even though it's nowhere near white.
How would you go brighter?
Right? Well, I could put more transparent white on it, and that would brighten it up, but that's not the goal. The goal is to leave it at something that when you look at it next to other models that you have, right? You know, let's grab Horse Guy, right? That armor's white, right? And against and on the table and with your armies and all of that, you know, other things that we've painted brighter, that's still white. Right? But what I'm trying to show you is that when you put white next to it, it is not white. What that means is that white now becomes a very powerful tool because when we go edge highlight stuff, white will appear to be the contrast we need for the solid edge and all of that. Whereas right now, we don't have a lot of space to move, right? And had I sprayed white on top of this, then you can't highlight it because you're hitting the top edges with your brightest color. So if I go back with more white and I get an edge to become true white, then what do I highlight it with? I'll lose the concept that we just talked about material focus. How do I edge highlight something that's white to make it seem like it's a hard material that would shine along the edges? Because that's what metal and armor do. So I lose the ability to do that. So I think we'll stop here and then we'll start highlighting with white and show you the power that has. Okay? Now, if we find during this process by going through and highlighting with the white that, oh, we probably should brighten the armor up a bit, there's too much contrast, then we can filter some more transparent white over the top of that, and that does it too. So a good way to kind of save yourself some grief is to just stop a little earlier than you might think is right, start highlighting with white, and see how you like it. Especially for 40K armies, this is going to be where you want to be. Because
that totally makes sense.
Yeah, that's why I always say, don't paint white when you want to paint white.
Right. Yep.
And it baffles people. They're like, well, that makes no sense at all. Now you understand that it does because you leave yourself no space to get brighter when you paint with white. There's no brighter color than white.
It's kind of like almost like your highlights and your edge highlighting is what makes it white, right? Or even the more illusion of the white.
Well, we talk about a lot when painting red. If you highlight your red with pink, does the armor look red anymore, or does it start looking like salmon or pink, right? That's why you'll see me a lot of times when highlighting things like yellows or reds, we'll highlight it with a color and then go filter some red over the top of that highlight. That's what we did with the Crimson Dynamo if you took my class at Adepticon, right? We went through and highlighted it with pale pink, looked completely garish. You painted this nice, like, blood red armor on Crimson Dynamo, and then you get the edge highlight with a super bright pale pink that's almost like a white. But because it's still pink, it changes the whole look and feel of the armor. Then you glaze over the top of that pale pink with the body color, which was in our case the pyro red, and it puts it all into focus, keeps the brightness. So there's a lot of ways to play tricks with the eye to make sure you can maintain contrast, value, and material, but never have to go to your brightest color. All right. So now we just need white. This is one of the few times you use like straight white. Bold titanium white.
Right out the gate.
The color that started it all. Fluorescent white.
Fluorescent white's the source. Yeah.
Fluoro white.
Like and stuff. If you go back yesterday,
It's like fluorescent black.
It was, let's see, not yesterday, but a couple days ago, he did the petroleum brown. So go check that out. I'll link it for you too.
Pop in close?
Yep.
Well, not super close, but the medium one. And now we're just going to start hitting the edges, right? We're going to do our traditional edge highlighting, and I want you to immediately see the impact of being able to have that color lay on there and actually have an effect, right? Look, I got an edge.
So you're just kind of just picking out the high panels here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the edge highlighting part, right? And I'll start very kind of, I don't want to call it timid, but I'll start very thin with my highlighting, so I don't overtake it too much, just so I can kind of see if I like it. Is this going to be the right contrast on here? And I feel like it is.
Yeah. Ooh, a lot of panel lines.
Yeah. You know, when we do the million days of deets and doots on non-metallic gold, welcome to hell.
Could you also do
This is why we don't paint tau.
Could you also do dry brushing here like you did on the vehicle? Like just catching...
You're dry brushing if you did it. The problem here is that the way GW does their recesses, doing panel lines with dry brushing is always very difficult. You typically are better off doing this, because in order to have the dry brush get enough pressure to actually pick these lines up, you have put too much paint on the surface around them. Right? Because they don't stand proud of the surface. All of these edges are etched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess there's not just a different. This is it wouldn't work here, I guess. Especially with these now.
If these were rivets instead of indentions, then I would say yes. Right? You could do a lot with that. I think this is like a color. So the emblem.
Yeah.
I feel like.
We might have put Jason in panel lining hell. Hey, but the workup was good. Yeah. That's looking great.
Right? Easy.
Easy. I guess so. That's what the kids call it, is easy. Have you painted any of the new artillery for Death Corps? We have not. And when I mean we, I mean as in Jason, as in us, as in all of us. This is Jason's scale jail. You kind of did this on that BattleTech, that big BattleTech mini too, though.
What did I do?
Where they had a lot of panels.
Oh my God! Yeah,
that one had
the
a lot
Timberwolf.
Yeah,
the Timberwolf was the last time we had to do a million miles of freaking panel lines. Yeah, it's why Tau doesn't really appeal to me, to be honest with you, because it is so much layered armor, and they're neat. Another thing is like Tau just don't feel like they fit into the grimdark world.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I guess they're just big stompy robots.
Yeah, I feel like somebody really liked Gundam, and decided they needed their own version of Gundam. GW worked very closely with Bandai for a long time.
But didn't they have like lizard people too in their world?
The Tau?
Yeah.
Well, the Tau have like flying bugs, the Vespids and stuff, because they're the space commies. Right. And so they go and annex and everybody that they find to their cause. So yeah, they have humans.
Okay.
They have human auxiliaries that join them when they don't, because they go in and they offer these settlements to serve the greater good instead of being overthrown, or will kill you. So you get cake or death.
Cake or death.
So you take cake.
Like the Viltrumites.
Yep. Exactly like Viltrum. So yeah, they had like they were just the nicer version of the Dark Eldar.
Yeah.
The Dark Eldar didn't give you a choice; it just enslaved you and then tied you to the rack and made you do horrible, despicable things with them.
So when you're doing this edge highlighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have, this is where the light is coming from, essentially from this side.
Yeah.
Are you still going to be using bold titanium white on the other parts, the darker parts, when you're going and you're doing the panels?
Over here, yes,
Yeah.
because it's going to have an even bigger effect on
You're
making
right.
it look white out of the shadows. It's just those
Gotcha.
edges would still shine, whether it be from reflective light from the whatever's over here in the environment away from you. It wouldn't be the thing that gives you your lighting is the broad spectrum of color on these panels.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, to make sure that it still feels like hard material, we would come onto the
Go to the bottom and do the same thing.
yeah. Well, I wouldn't do it reverse.
Okay.
I wouldn't highlight it from the ground up unless I had like a water effect, right? But I could do just this very thin edge,
Yeah. Okay.
and it still has the effect of making that a white panel, even though it's in the dark.
And it still looks dark. It looks like the dark side of the model. Still.
Yeah.
Right.
So there'll still be some reflective quality over here. It's not like you're in outer space necessarily unless you're doing that, where there's absolutely no light away from the light source. Here we just have less, but we still want to create, the idea that there is some secondary reflection, some environmental light. The sun is diffused through the atmosphere. So, as like a filmer, right? A photographer, that your light is all over the place.
Yeah.
Outdoors.
Yes.
Right. So I would edge like that, and it still makes it look like hard metal now.
Yeah.
And it still feels like this white, just in shadow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, same edge highlight color. Now you could use like the white blue over here and do it with white blue as well. Right, you can make that decision that white blue would be the right way to do it. I think white blue might be a little bit too much of a color differentiator though. So I just use white and just make sure that I don't make my lines too thick. That's the key over in the shadows, is that you just want to catch that thin edge. Right. And that is the nice thing about Tau, is that like Gundam, it's a bunch of hard square edges.
You're right.
So. But see, that's poor man's non-metallic metal right there. You got a little bit of a blend, and then you've got an edge highlight on it, and boom, that looks like metal. And same thing on all these edges here, assuming that all of these would stay white, which for right now we'll pretend they are going to.
And so if, let's say you've done all this paneling and you've gotten to this stage and you're like, I wish it was just a little bit more white, that's when you would go over it with some like watered down or glazed transparent white again.
I could, yeah.
Over everything, essentially.
Yeah. I like this side the best. You get the most contrast out of each edge.
Well, yeah, you definitely get
has
more
a huge
punch.
impact.
Yep.
When you do this.
So for 30K Space Wolves, says how it works here, would you use white blue as a final highlight on the armor? So like that gray workup before you did the white, would you do white blue as the highlight?
You could. I might use something like gray blue.
A little bit darker.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think the gray blue might be a better choice next to the cool gray, but it may be too blue as well. So you might mix the cool gray with the white blue. That might get you there, right? Because you've got cool gray to white blue is a big jump, and the white blue brings a lot more blue back into it. I think the blue gray would too, right? Yeah, the blue gray brings a little bit too much blue back into it as well. So maybe mix the white blue or just white with cool gray would be your better bet. Or, believe it or not, why not just use bright neutral gray?
Bright neutral gray, you could.
Yeah, I think maybe we're overthinking this, and we would just grab bright neutral gray wherever it is. Who knows? It's here.
Sugar Russ is asking a question about the
bright
new
neutral
Dauntless.
gray. There you go. Bright neutral gray would be the choice.
Yep.
Ta-da!
What are the new brushes? The new brushes, who are they for, and where do they sit in the current line?
they're for everybody. They sit in the cheaper end of the spectrum. They're just made to be your beat-up brushes. We always, in the past, had what we called, they started being called the artillery or utility brushes. They went by both names in the past. And the goal with them was to offer inexpensive solution to brushes that you just needed to use for, washes, metallics, kind of a throwaway brush. I come from a world, and rightfully so, where brushes are a disposable thing. But when people are just getting into the hobby, thinking in terms of a $30 sable brush being disposable isn't really where everybody's mind is, because they haven't painted long enough to see what they get from a $30 brush. So making that commitment is rough if you think, oh, I'm not going to spend $30 on something I'm just going to throw away. I don't even know how to use it. So the Dauntless brushes are meant for everybody from the first-time painter who doesn't want to invest a lot before they know they're committed to it, all the way to the seasoned pro who knows how they use their brushes, and they're like, yeah, I just need some good throwaways. But I got to be honest with you, if you go back and watch our videos, all the models I painted over the past 18 months.
A lot of them, I went back and checked the VODs. You'll switch around, but if you guys go back and look through the year or so, you'll see a little white-handled brush that Jason's using. It's the same one. He did a lot with it. One brush, by the way. So.
Yes, if you're crazy like me, this could be your only brush set. Who knows?
Oh, I'm probably gonna. I'm due for a upgrade here, so I'm probably gonna grab some of these myself. That looks great.
Yeah, so it just keeps it white. So you're playing with where the color lies, and if it's on the shadowed side of the model, still being able to grab that edge really tells the story that you aren't telling with the base colors. Those edges suck because you got to draw them on.
Armin's Wrath, 47 months, or no, 57 months.
Hold on, man.
Lenny's Brush is 7 months as well.
Thank you, guys.
Augustin says, hello, I don't know why, but today when I see you paint in such a great way, I feel bad about my models. Yesterday I was happy with them, but today I don't know. But still, I love to see you paint and comment.
What?
No, that's no, you should never feel bad about where your progress is at. Where is that?
I mean, that's the whole reason why we do this, right?
Yeah.
Because all of this is super easy. What we've done here, how we've gotten this in an hour, is meant to be inspiring to the point where you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. Now this has been all airbrush except for the line work that I'm doing now. So if you're not comfortable with an airbrush, you can recreate these colors the same way. On larger models, it'll be harder without an airbrush.
What's the best and worst Space Marine chapters for you, Jason?
What do you mean, to paint or just in general?
Aaron just said best and worst Space chapters, so maybe painting. I would assume painting because we are painting.
Which Aaron? Aaron Avenged. Best and worst. I don't know. I don't like 40K World Eaters.
Oh, you don't like
the corn guys that are all
ones?
red and brass. I think that's very too one-dimensional for me. They've all got the big. They and Thousand Suns rank right up there with one another as far as I'm not interested in painting them because the armor is so stupid.
Yeah.
To me, the big things that they can't go through doorways on their heads. It's just, I don't know. There's a limit to my suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
And they hit it. I think is the problem. That's the only way I can put that, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the coloring though. If you put them all into 30K, then there really isn't any that I dislike painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same World Eaters in 30K are blue and white. Maybe that's a little boring as a color scheme, but you can spruce it up with weathering and blood, of course, depending on when you're doing them in the heresy, blood for the blood god kind of stuff. So that can be kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know that I have a preference. I'm not trying to weasel out of the question. I've always been a big Imperial Fist fan. I have no idea why.
Okay.
It's not that I love yellow armor. As a matter of fact, when I really got down and dirty to make my first Imperial Fist army, I spent a lot of time researching the chapter to find out where I could alter the colors so they didn't all have to be bright yellow. And the first company uses a lot more black. So I did first company Imperial Fists. So I could do a lot more blacks and grays, and then just shoulder pads in yellow and things like that. But yeah, I don't know that I have a favorite and a non. If you were to say, hey, let's paint some Space Marines, I'd be like, what do you want to paint? What chapter do you guys want? I don't like the shtick of like Alpha Legion being able to change their colors into other legions and stuff like that. So that doesn't thrill me to paint, but that's not really what they're about. So I don't know. Maybe some of the Raven Guard, again, just painting a bunch of black armor is a little bit boring. But that's true of any Space Marine chapter. They can all become boring because they're all the same.
They're kind of samey, just different color schemes, I guess.
Yeah, so I like Space Marines and painting Space Marines and always will because of the fact that you get to explore your painting in other ways to make the model interesting. Mm-hmm. It's like every one of them is a monthly challenge, kind of. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep. Aaron was expecting White Scars or Black Templars because people struggle with white and black armor.
Nah. I love them all.
Hey, that's why we did a black armor workup, and now we're doing a white armor workup.
Yeah. You know, I think that is true for a lot of people, is that whatever color you struggle with will be the one you avoid because we don't like pain, right? Especially not in our hobby. It's like, I want to have fun painting my Marines. I don't want to paint yellow. So I'm never doing Imperial Fist. And it's funny because I've known a lot of people that will take that into almost like a narrative, mm-hmm. right? Their hatred of yellow as a color or their hatred of yellow as a thing they have to paint will turn into their hatred of a faction because they're yellow. So they're, I hate Rogel Dorn. And I'm like, well, why?
Because I don't like to paint yellow.
Yeah, because I don't like to paint yellow is really what the answer is.
That's
but
funny.
they've it becomes that emotional attachment of I don't want to ever paint that color becomes I hate that faction. So I like that. I like the social dynamics of that's kind of funny. Yeah, for me, I don't care. Whatever. I like the challenge of, like I said, taking a color that may not be the best or, most flamboyant and then finding a way to do it and make it cool. When I painted my 30K Dark Angels, that was kind of the thing, is that, we did this kind of black green and black wash to get a combo for my Dark Angels that would be in between the 40K and the 30K coloring, still leaning a little into green, but, black-ish, so it could still resemble the black armor of 30K. And so that was fun. So I'll do things like that. If it's not an army I'm particularly interested, because, 30K Dark Angels were black. So I'm like, I don't care. That doesn't seem cool to me. But make a color that does seem cool to recreate, and then go to town.
Yes, it says dark hot pink with orange yellow over it. The top is pretty fantastic.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Ooh, that does sound like a fun combo.
100%. All of the shtick with pink underneath yellow is valid because it gives you oranges, and oranges are a great base for yellows. But I'm always going to tell you that you're better suited to use oranges and skip the pink, because if you mess up and don't cover all the pink, there would not be a time where you really want to have pink underneath yellow as two visual colors. While they blend well, they don't really stand alone together well. Does that make stand alone together? You don't put pink next to yellow very often and really like it in a wargaming sense. Maybe in a Easter Bunny egg sense. But it's all personal preference at that point. Do you? But yeah, we'll do yellow here, and I'll be painting orange as our layer for it. That shoulder plate gives us a good idea of how we've got the bright top, a little bit brighter on this side, a little bit darker on this side. Good shape on that, as it has those angled sides and pulls off the idea of white armor very well.
Looks sleek.
I'm liking it. This is a very cool model. It's intricate. Like I said, this is just basically like 40K Gundams.
Well, it's got a little bit of BattleTech. It's got a little bit of Gundam. It's got a little bit of everything. So it's not just a big stompy robot. It's a good size. I thought that was good.
Yeah, no, it's out of the battle suits. This is my favorite.
Yeah.
The Riptide is too tall and skinny. The Ghost Kill is chonky and feels like it's daunting, even though it's like a stealth fighter. I think it like you can't shoot it outside of 18 inches because it has stealth technology or something like that.
Oh.
I don't know what the rules are anymore. I don't pay attention, but it's like more of a stealth suit.
Do you have to prime your thumb each day? Says Michael Host.
Yes. Yes, I have to prime it in skin color every day.
Where's the dark plum? Says game delay. I thought we were painting white. We use dark navy blue game delay.
Dark navy blue, baby. I think it worked really, really well. Very happy with the way the dark navy blue, the 3 amp colors that we chose to do this with. Again, kind of a neat way to explore the amp range with you guys.
Yeah.
And show you the neat colors that we have done with AMG. On a totally non-AMG model. So there you go. Okay, that is a parting line, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that as well. I don't know if it's supposed to be an armor join or if it's just where the kit went together, but I'm okay with it either way. Tower filled with so many lines that you could actually highlight the mold lines. Have it work.
And it will look like it's just a part of it.
It's supposed to be there. Yeah, the one thing I love about Tau and always have is Kroot.
Yeah, you have some Kroot.
I have some Kroot that I plan on painting on stream. When the individual who asked if we ever paint Tau in chat, and forgive me, I don't remember who it was.
Oh, I think it was Alex WP? Alex Panda.
Oh, is he here?
I think so.
Awesome.
Alex Panda, wow, I joined way too late. I was dying to see how a Tau is painted. Thanks so much for painting one.
Awesome. Yeah, you can catch the VOD on this for sure. We were just talking about you, and glad you showed up. The idea when you were asking, I was like, I've got some Kroot that I've been meaning to paint, but I know it's not the same as the Tau. It's very, very different than Tau, actually.
But Tau or whatever.
Yeah, but
this is a cool model.
Yeah, that's why when I said, I'd paint a Ghost Keel because it's the only model out of the Tau range that I really care about. The original Crisis battle suits and stuff, the concept was really cool, but the implementation was just not great. They were just big blocky things.
Dusty Hobby says the Forge World hazard suits are the absolute goat. World hazards.
Yeah, the hazard suits are pretty bitchin'. I think those are the ones that are like mini Riptides, right?
I think. Juan has a question. Question on the brush on primer. Since you wouldn't thin primer, generally speaking, would you also want to minimize the moisture on your brush when applying it?
You want to use a little bit of moisture on your brush. Treat it like a normal paint. Just don't thin the paint. Just use the wetness of your brush to apply it. The dampness on your brush is very important because that's what allows the paint to flow on and off of the brush correctly. So if you use just a dry brush, it gets all gummy, and the primer especially. So where we say don't thin the paint, you still want to hold true to that. But you do want to take a look at dampness on the brush so that you don't wind up with it gumming up the works, so to speak.
It's awesome stuff if you haven't got your hands on it yet.
Vince Venturella, in his latest video, he hates brush on primer. He hates the idea of it.
Yeah,
and he loved our brush on primer.
that's what he
So
said.
I feel like that's a big thing, and he did not tell me he was doing that, so I felt very vindicated.
No,
and
it
that
was.
he loves us. He really does.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. Louise loved that at the booth.
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah. Having
She's
it at the
like-
booth. The whole reason, right,
She
is
asked,
that
"Is this brush on primer?" And I'm like, "Yep." She loved it.
yeah, it's twofold, right? It's that having a way to prime when traveling is super important
Yes.
because you can't always just find a rattle can laying around or be in an area where you can even use one if you did. And then on top of that, just having that for people that don't have an airbrush, right, in general, is great. I'm just bouncing around to different edges that appeal to me.
For applying OSL stuff, would you use the white paint on instead of using like bold titanium white?
I do white transparent.
Transparent white on the bottom layer, or do you take transparent white, make your light source of the OSL, and
Yeah.
then start coloring it in whatever the color is?
You got it.
Got it.
Yeah, when doing OSL, I take transparent white, spray it over the model in the area where I want the light to shine,
And then you can kind of sketch it in.
and then I use
Oh.
transparent color over that. The best example, and it's been a long time since we've done this, but when we painted Deidre, the Wanderer, right on this side, I painted the model as if it didn't have any OSL, like we talked about earlier. I painted in these rough browns and
Yeah.
burgundies and whatever for the cape, and then I took transparent white with the airbrush, and I just sprayed it from the direction of the torch onto her body where it would hit, right? All the way down is a little bit on the transparent white, hit the top of the leg where it pokes out, hit the waistcoat, right? A little bit on the top of the greaves. And then I took transparent yellow and orange, mixed them together, and glazed that over it. So her skin was just normal human skin tone. And then I glazed over the top of that. Whoop, right? She had Caucasian flesh, yellow, orange. And then all of a sudden it looks like it's lit with the glow because now the color of the light, the orangish yellow, goes over the color of the skin. I do that for black skin, for reddish brown skin, very pale skin. Paint it the way the skin would be, then put the color over it because the color will then react the way it would over that color of skin. Right? On a dark colored skin, and light isn't going to reflect except at the brightest points, like on the cheek and such, and the skin will fall into shadow very quickly.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we've done here. And then the same on her dead side, right? I sprayed from the bottom up here to give it that, what I call swimming pool glow, right? So you can't tell from this side, right? Whereas the torchlight comes from above and hits the sword and everything. From the bottom, I've got this glow of eerie cave glow or whatever. And I mixed white and green, transparent white and transparent green to get a jade color, right? And that's what you get here. And again, you can glaze it with the, I use the transparent white with the airbrush to throw onto the model, and then I just glaze the color on with the brush. And so you get this kind of cool bidirectional lighting effect on her, which is really neat. But I paint the model as if there's no light, put the transparent white on the model to act as the light, and then put the color of the light over the top of that. Works really well.
That's funny.
You're a masochist, you paint OSL by brush. You can do the same thing with a brush.
Yeah.
It's just that the airbrush recreates the cone that light would create. Like light is a bunch of rays emanating from the source. The airbrush just gives me the ability to like put the airbrush at the point of wherever it is. I don't know. There's nothing. Well, like if the front of this gun were glowing, then I could put the airbrush here and just on the head and the shoulders and everything, and it would give that same dispersion as light would and take care of hitting all the areas at once, and I don't have to think about it. So if I can use the airbrush, I will. It's not always possible. So yeah, brush works just as well.
So you airbrush the white and then brushed on the jade color mix specifically?
Yeah, you could airbrush it too if you wanted to. That's irrelevant. I tend to glaze it on because I feel like I have more control over the color.
Yeah.
When I use the brush to get it just right. But that's really up to you.
Just picking out some more of these panel lines here.
For the rest of my life, Chris, thanks for making me paint white.
I'm sorry. But you're going pretty quick. You definitely can start seeing it as you're doing this. You can start to see the white really coming to life here. It was looking white before, but now it's really looking like more of a white color.
Yeah,
Rather
the
than
edge
just a gray
detailing
suit.
helps a ton.
Yeah, rather than just a gray suit.
Yep. And again, it'll be a very clean looking white before we go in and weather. We want to do all this edging. I know it seems painful, but if this is a big enough model to do this on, then, and treat this way, then it's a character style model, and it will look a lot better, and you'll feel a lot better about it if you spend the time, right, to do this edge highlighting, then do the weathering, right? Just like we did on the tank we did not too long back, is that weathering will cross those edges and break up your highlight, which is the way it would be anyway, The one disbelief you struggle to suspend about skeletal undead is the lack of tendons. How do they move? Yeah, I've never been a fan of zombies and skeletons and stuff. I mean, I like them, but I don't think about them much. I have to really just shut the brain down.
It's magic.
I watch freaking zombie movies, and I'm like, yeah, no.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, no.
Unless it's a freshly made zombie.
Yeah, no.
Freshly infected.
Yeah. Okay, so like we talked about, the Last of Us kind of parasitic mind control bug or virus.
That's kind of different.
Yeah, but eventually it all dies. And when it dies, and at least in The Last of Us, they went to soil. When they got taken over, they would be grown to the walls and not harmful anymore, right? They'd go to the ground and they turn into more plants that gave out more spores that did it again. There was a whole cycle that made sense there, as opposed to just zombies wander the earth forever. It's like, hey, let's just, if we order enough food when we hear about it, then we can just wait this out, right?
I guess so,
because they just got to stop moving at some point.
That's it.
If you painted it like an 80s Bandai robot, you'd have to hand paint no step on at least 20 with the hazard stripes. No. No. You people are trying to kill me. I thought we were friends here, people. This has obviously been proven to be not true.
Hey, no, this is good stuff, Jason.
I did look up today the Tau symbols for ghost keels.
Okay, what color
so
are they?
We will have to look that up and pull the JPEG at some point so that I can do all the hand-painted Tau emblems. Really happy about that. Thanks, Chris.
Are you having fun, Jason?
Let's paint some Tau, Chris. Yeah, great.
I thought it was a good idea.
Yes is always your excuse.
I think it's a good idea.
Sounded good at the time.
Oh, wow, these are really... Oh, okay, there's a bunch of different color Tau.
Septs, they're called, within the casts. Space commies. Commie space fish.
Trying to find a ghost kill.
We'll do that. Maybe black.
The Kroot's kind of fun.
Kroot are super cool. And even better now because they have a lot more personality on the models.
Oh, the ghost... Oh, this is just a ghost kill. But their helmet is... Oh, that is kind of cool. The red helmet on the ghost kill?
I don't like the white and red.
Oh, you don't like the white and red?
I don't know why. I don't like white and red, and I don't like white and blue. It feels too third grade Crayola box to me. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It can work. I'll do the emblems in red because the Tau emblems in red I think look good on the white. But I want to do the helmet as either like a beat up yellow or I was thinking maybe like a camo beige, like a brownish beige would be kind of cool too.
Yeah.
So we'll play around with it and see. I'll come up with something. I won't let you down, chat. I just won't let you pick because I'm not doing hot pink, you bastages. Or plaid. There's no plaid.
No plaid.
On my Tau. These are not
Gabe
Highlander
says,
Tau.
To be clear, I knew that my concern about tendons has no place in Age of Sigmar. I do know that lack of tendons shouldn't be my biggest concern. That's, yes, the whole undead debate here is, I think everybody has their own opinion on the old undead, how they should walk, because apparently you could do it a bunch of different ways, I suppose. But it's dead, so they don't exist.
There was a sci-fi tale of the end of the world, and it was really fun because it was that people couldn't die.
Uh-huh.
And it was fun because they were like, that was their zombie apocalypse, is that you couldn't die.
Okay.
They had achieved immortality, but that at some point in time you're like, but we kind of need to die,
Interesting.
The body would still wither, but you couldn't die. I think it was like the soul would never leave the body.
Huh.
So
Okay.
your motor skills and stuff would die, the tendons and stuff would wear out,
you
but
would
you were
just-
still in this body, like laying on the ground.
Oh, wow. That is
You
kind
know?
of creepy.
It's like the buried alive kind of stories
Yeah.
where you got the guy in the coffin.
Killjoy's asking, will you ever release a complete set that includes all of your colors?
No. And the reason we will not is because it does not support our retailers the way we love to support our retail partners. We already have some retailers that are kind of bummed that we offer the mega set only online on our store. They wish they could sell it too. It's at the bigger discount than our MAP policy. We only allow people to discount by like 10% in their advertising.
Gotcha.
And we live up to that on everything except the big set. It's 20% off because
the
it's
mega set.
the mega set.
The
Yeah,
mega set, Killjoy. That's the way to go.
but the mega set's 69 colors. It gets you all of the real good colors, and then you just add whatever set you want to it.
And when he means by real good, he means that they're already good. And they're all real good because all the colors are real good.
They're all fantastic.
There are a lot of cool colors out there, chat.
But yeah, we have to think of those things. A full set of everything just kind of counterplays the ability for retailers. Because if everybody could come on the website, buy all the colors, then we really want you to go visit your local hobby store too. Those guys and gals make the hobby tons better.
Yeah.
Just had a new store open in Phoenix.
Oh, yeah?
Well, surprise.
Surprise!
Surprise! Up in Surprise.
Oh, surprise, man. I'm telling you, it's growing. Well, everywhere's growing here. It's crazy. Queen Creek is way bigger than you thought it was.
Yeah.
Little Billy says, Stream Bingo is ready for Monday. There are no prizes, but it'll be fun to do. Stream Bingo. You're going to have to explain that to us, Little Billy. Oh, it's with Jason. All of Jason. That's what you were saying. It was with all of Jason's favorite quotes. Stream Bingo.
Huh.
Oh, that could be fun. I'm guessing it'll be the Element Games instead. Yes. Chris getting fired. Is Chris getting fired? The free square? No, I'm not getting fired, Ghost Hunter. I won't stand for it.
That's a pretty positive attitude.
I won't get fired. Yet.
He hadn't been fired yet today. Let's start
right.
there.
Game delay. More people are moving to Arizona because there's definitely enough water. Oh, so why wouldn't you be able to sell the full set to retailers or the current mega set?
Because it's not a packaged product. It's just all the individual sets.
Yeah.
We do tell them they can do the same thing with their sets, but of course that eats into their profit margin, right? There's a reality to retail sales that, people are trying to make money. And we can take the loss by selling it to you directly at that discount better than our retailers can. Make sense? So, not loss, but you get what I'm saying. We can offer that discount in a lot better way than the retailers can. So,
Mega set.
because it doesn't come in like a huge box. It comes as all the individual sets that it includes. At one nifty price.
Someone told me that you guys' red sable brushes are really nice to paint with, so I'm looking to see if I can get my hands on one and try it out. Trying to find a good brush to paint with.
Awesome. They are very, very good.
Definitely give it a whirl. Yes, we do sell singles. And they are, we sell just, there's no such thing as a left-handed brush, Ghost Hunter. Call you out right there.
All of our brushes are left-handed. What are you talking about?
Well, technically.
I'm left-handed. I don't know if you've noticed, Chris. This is not a backwards camera.
I don't know.
I am lefty. El Southpaw.
Here's Waskin. Synthetic brushes. What are their purpose?
To make you paint better. That's all I use. I only use our synthetics. Right now I'm using the new Dauntless brushes. They're not available on the store yet, but they will be soon. Yeah, I choose to only use synthetics. They are a stiffer bristle, so they will give you better snap than any natural hair any natural hair that we would use in the hobby. There are natural hairs like horse and camel that have really, really good snap, but they can't get into small enough brushes to be useful. But yeah, so they give me a stiffer bristle that still delivers and loads paint like a sable. So I get very, very good control and consistent paint output. In the old days, when people decided they hated sables or hated synthetics, is because they were like, a $5 set of 10 from Walmart that are made for, kids in their first art supply project at school.
Yeah.
And those brushes are not going to load paint and deliver paint at low viscosity. They're going to work fine for thicker, paints that kids would use at school, or heavier acrylic paints, even like tube paints. They'll work okay. But by and large, no, you're going to need a bristle that acts more like a sable. And so modern synthetics like ours, we spend a lot of time, and like I said, all the models you see me paint are done with those. The first time I had used a sable in a long time was at Adepticon, because it's all we had.
Yeah.
So I use sables in my class.
And how do you maintain your point
on
your synthetic?
Yeah, so with synthetics, the thing is you'll see me a lot of times painting. Let's get a bigger brush so I can display it better. We have a video over on YouTube called Chasing the Point.
I just posted it, yep.
And especially with synthetics, but with any brush, this is very important, right? You get a nice brush. This is our Dauntless Synthetics, right? So this is a number 5. And on that, you get it pulled to a nice point. But as you start painting, especially if you have a heavy hand, by heavy hand, if you bend the brush a lot when you paint, what happens is that over a few brush strokes, what winds up happening is that your tip starts to splay out. Looks more like a cat tongue, right? So the point flares a bit. And then when you rotate it this way, though, you get back to a knife edge. Okay, so it flattens on one side and makes it sharper on the other. It calls a chisel, is the way I say it. You chisel your brush out the more you paint. Whether you're painting detail lines or base coats or whatever, you flatten it out on one side, you make it into a chisel. There's still good paint on it, so rotate that brush 90 degrees, right? Don't twist it again. Just paint and then rotate it 90 degrees, and now paint with this edge, and as you do that, this edge flattens out, and then rotate it 90 degrees to get back to that knife edge, and now you've got your detailed edge again. And as you do that, you prevent the brush from gaining a memory, getting that tip to curl so quick, right? Because some people hate synthetics because eventually the tip will start to roll, right? Because there's, at the tip, the way it forms is that there's very few of the filaments that are that long. So that's how you get the shape. But with fewer filaments up here, they just don't have the strength to maintain their shape over years. So they'll start to bend and get a memory. But if you rotate it around as you do it, both sables and synthetics will last a lot longer for you and not feel like they're gaining that memory, I call it, of knowing which direction you painted last.
And here's a little fun Easter egg for you. If you click that link that I just posted about the Chasing the Point, Jason's using the prototype white handle brush in that video, and that's the Dauntless brush, which is the same brush.
Mm.
So that's the
little trivia,
the proof in the pudding of a year ago. So check that out. Yes, you retailers do and can carry the signature set colors. Can you explain the benefit of using short hair brushes versus long hair brushes and vice versa?
I mean, the only thing I can really think of is that the short hair brush will help you get into tighter details better, maybe.
Is that pretty much it?
I don't know. Winsor Newton has a line called miniature brushes, but they're just shorter bristles. They're not meant for painting miniatures.
What is it for?
They're made for painting smaller details.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. So in areas where you don't need that long bristle, you're not trying to load as much paint, right? Those can be beneficial. For us, the standard length bristle like this is something that you want to stay away from lining brushes, which are super long in general, unless you are doing a lot of freehand lines. That's the kind of things that sign painters use. Those are a little out of control as far as their overall length. Probably don't need that much.
I'm very excited for these brushes. They're coming soon. We will let you all know. working on the packaging for them. But keep an eye out on social medias. You clean the synthetics the same way as the sables.
100%. 100%. The only thing that the synthetic won't do, like if you're using our brush goop, then the only thing that the synthetics don't benefit from is the conditioning. Because they don't need to be conditioned. You know, they're plastic.
This is looking good, Jason.
Why, thank you, Christopher.
Hey, you're putting paint on the model, aren't
I
you?
am putting paint on the model. The same paint, many millions of times.
For all of those who are just now tuning in to the last part of our streams, we're getting to the end. We're going to be painting up some white over the next several streams. And the next several streams might be in panel lining hell, but you can start to see, I'll punch out a little bit. You can really start to see that white pop now. See that from that angle? You can really start to tell that it's white.
Yeah.
Which, you know, when you're zoomed in like this, obviously it's for panels, but now from that 3-foot rule, you're starting to get the idea, which is cool. I dig it.
It's very nice. Is Jen here? What?
Jen was here a little bit ago, answered a question.
She answered a question you missed? Is that what you're saying?
No, I repeated it. I went back up. It was asking about the retailers for the Signature Series colors.
Oh, yeah. Retailers have access to all of our colors. Everything. Retailers overseas do not have the spray paints yet. So that's about the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything else they don't have.
Oh, actually, here's a great question. Any tips on getting... Oh, sorry, let me back up here a little bit. Any tips on getting a right paint dilution where it's not too watery or not too dry? We have a great video for that as well.
Yeah.
The thumb palette one. Plus, actually, I have another clip that we're going to post at some point about how much paint you should actually be using. You did a really good tip on that the other day.
Well, yeah, and there's a video on YouTube about how I paint with just the water on my brush.
Yeah.
And that goes in depth into that as well. So if you can find links to those.
Yeah.
Those are great. The key is that a lot of that is subjective. There's not a silver bullet I can give you to say X amount of drops of water versus X amount of drops of paint because every paint is different. I paint 99.9% of what I do. Pick a model. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be this guy that we painted. You know, it could be the horse we just did. It doesn't matter. Any of the models that I paint, I'm just using the moisture on my brush. I switch over to the palette. So,
yeah.
You know, because my palette is just a piece of palette paper, right? I have a piece of palette paper here and a piece of glass. Neither one of them are clean. Don't worry about it. And that's all I use. So you see, I don't add any water to my paint here. At the outskirts, sometimes you'll see that I add water to make a really thin dilution very quick for a glaze. But typically, I'm doing that in a cup. I'll mix in a cup if I'm using enough paint. You know, or I'll do it super quick at the outliers. You might see some that start to look like, you know, they spot out because I've thinned them. But this is how I use my paint. Most of this is straight out of the bottle, wetness of my brush into that paint. I don't add water to my paint. I just add the water that's on my brush. And let all of the dilution happen on the brush, even for glazing. Doesn't matter. Like for this white, I'm only leaving a little bit of water in my brush. I want to be able to pull thin, consistent lines. But I'm not adding any water to the actual paint on the palette. I don't like wet palettes because they continually dilute your paint, and your paint alters over time to be something that you having to use differently every time you go get it. I like having the paint the way it came out of the bottle to go back to all the time, because then the water on the brush is all you need. And if you leave the brush with as much water as it'll hold, that'll get you to a glaze. If you start wiping it on the paper towel once, then it'll make it a little bit of a lighter glaze. And hit it on the paper towel twice, you've wicked more of the paint out of it, and now or more of the water out of it, and now you start getting closer to opacity. Wipe it on the paper towel, you know, 2 or 3 times, and now you've gotten all of the water out of it, and now you're left with full opacity of the paint like it was straight out of the bottle. So it's kind of up to you. You get to control it very well that way.
Yeah, a lot of people do a lot of different things, but I've definitely started to adopt the process of making it simple and just using the tool as it comes. You know, the
Repeatability is key. How are you
Yeah.
going to do it right now that you can do with the next color you want to paint and the next color you want to paint, no matter how you want to paint with them?
That is a good point because, like, if you don't have that medium, if you're like using a weird medium to help with your paint or anything like that, you don't need any of that with our stuff.
Just water.
It's ready to go for you out of the bottle. Jason, it's about that time.
What?
Yeah,
Holy
dude.
cow.
It's 3:57.
I've just lost all track of reality painting nothing but white lines.
No, this is great. You did a great job, Jason.
Why, thank you, Christopher. Oh, actually, I don't know. Guess I could still cheat and have it be this line. It's going to kind of be both of these. As always, gang, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you've gotten some inspiration on how to make white not as daunting. Wait, I'll just paint that black. That'll solve that problem altogether. It is one of the worst colors to paint. When you are thinking about doing your favorite army, somebody asked earlier, maybe your favorite army is White Scars. And you really want to paint some White Scars Marines, but you're like just freaking scared numb listening to everybody on the internet and streams say, oh my God, I never paint white. It's horrible, right? Well, today we showed you very simply how you can get to a nice workup of grays and blues into what will appear to be white on the table. Did it all with the airbrush. You could do this all with a brush too.
Yep.
So becomes very, very simple. Gets a really, really nice detail going and pulls off the color nicely. And you can use lots of different underpinning colors. We could have worked this up from greens, neutral grays, browns, oranges, reds even. You can basically build up to white since it's a pure neutral color out of anything. The blues give us a nice cooler look, more like a crisp, hospital white that I really like if we're going to do weathering, because then the brown, greasy weathering fits over it as if, here was this nice, clean thing that got thrown into war. So it has a really nice contrast effect there.
That's it.
White is more of a hassle, but it's not that six-headed monster. No, definitely not. But it is learning to paint white without using white. The first time we're using white is on the edges. We haven't used any white other than the edge highlights, and that's the reason why we'll be able to pull off such a nice-looking white at the end of the day, because I guess we use transparent white for some of the highlights, but not an opaque white until the very end, because if you use white, you can't highlight it. There is nothing brighter than white in a paint sense. And so you paint the model white, you paint your stormtroopers white, you put a wash on them, and then you can dry brush them again with white, and that works because the wash darkens it up. So there's easier methods to do white, right? But it's going to be given inconsistent shading because the washes typically don't filter correctly and all that. So this is just a really good way to build up from a dark base, get your shadowing and your contrast on the model, have it all work really well, and then just be able to spend all your time on the details, which on a model like this is going to be 18 million years. Thanks, Chris.
But it's gonna look so good. Oh, it's gonna look great.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. If you're new around here, please hit that follow button if you're on Twitch, or the subscribe button if you're over on our YouTubes. And remember, if you do go to the YouTube channel, which the link is there that Chris just put up, all of our videos like this one, if you tuned in late, you can go back and watch from the beginning, as well as the history of other videos. Unfortunately, not all 9 years. Or maybe, fortunately, you don't have to watch all 9 years. But we've been doing this a long time. So we thank you so much for your support and hanging out with us. Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here in Phoenix, Arizona is when we stream. We'd love to see you back. So please do hit that bell and get alerted when we are live. We hope you have a wonderful and safe weekend. Check out the links that Chris put up there. Check out monumenthobbies.com and our FLGS link for the local stores that might be near you to go pick up a bottle. If you've never tried our paint, go pick up a paint and pick up one you're afraid of, is the way I always tell people. If you have a paint you hate painting with, go pick up our version and see what we're all about. We'd love to have you as part of the family. So, again, thank you so much for hanging out. Chris is going to find somebody to raid, so show some love as we wind up over there. Enjoy your hobby into the weekend. Don't do anything we wouldn't do, and we'll catch you back here on Monday. Adios, gang.